Annual Red Deer Expo. I am here with legend Robert Bailey. Thank you so much for the interview. You've had a huge history dealing with a lot of big icons, Star Wars, Marvel. How did you start with the Star Wars brand?
Well, I was into military illustration. I was doing drawings and large oil paintings of World War II, European combat, Pacific theater combat, and as you may know, George Lucas is a big fan of that kind of genre. And about 10 years ago, he was looking at my website, contacted me and said, if you can do this, you can do Star Wars. Would you do Star Wars? And so that's how that whole thing began.
Nice. How did your career in art actually start?
I've been drawing since I was about 3 or 4 years old, and when I was 15 in the UK, I went to College of Art where I learned basic drawing and painting, and then I moved to Canada, and after careers in television, I was in television for 5 years making television commercials, directing, shooting, and editing television. And then I was with the Calgary Herald for about 12 years as a photographer and writer, and later as a layout artist. And then after that came the aviation art, and then Star Wars. And I'd been doing Star Wars for about 2 years, mostly work that was going to George Lucas's personal art collection. And then I was at a show in Toronto, the Toronto Fan Expo, and the licensor for Marvel approached me and said, we like your Star Wars work, would you consider doing Marvel, Spider-Man, the Avengers, and so on? And so I've been licensed for that as well.
Nice. What elements of Star Wars, like for the designs, are you kind of responsible for certain iconic looks?
Well, when I spoke with George Lucas, his idea was to initially get me going on the Star Wars Visions project, which culminated in a large coffee table book for which he did the foreword. And after that, I was still doing work for him, and then he switched from Star Wars back to World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So he bought a lot of my work from both of those genres. And he said, I would like to see iconic scenes from Star Wars viewed from different camera angles so that people get more of a fresh look instead of the same thing every time. Because most fans have seen a Star Wars movie so many times, they're familiar with the script and the frame by frame. So I'm trying to give it a fresh look.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fans that'll know like almost the exact size, dimensions of a ship, and
yes, they do.
All
number
that kind
of
of
rivets,
stuff.
That kind of thing.
Pretty much.
I've heard people give me feedback if I make a mistake.
What are some of your favorite aspects of Star Wars that you're not responsible for?
That I'm not responsible for?
Yeah, like certain design aspects that you particularly love about it, or even characters.
That I love about Star Wars?
Yeah.
Well, I love the first 3 movies, but I also love the prequels. I know that a lot of fans don't. I particularly like the Princess Leia character and the Natalie Portman character, Amidala. I like to draw Natalie Portman, but not so popular with the fans, unfortunately. But Vader is relatively easy to draw. Spider-Man is the very slowest, so yeah. I don't do as much Spider-Man as I should.
Just because of like a lot of the webbing design or detail?
Webbing. I do work that Marvel purchase from me on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And they order all the Avengers in one frame. So you have all those faces to depict. That slows you down.
Especially when you have to be like perfect in like how the characters look and certain features so that they don't look off.
That's right. And if you're doing, say, 7 characters in one frame and you've done 6, now you're really tense, because if you make a mistake on that last face, the whole thing is ruined. And this paper I'm using does not take an eraser kindly.
What kind of materials do you work with?
I use a Japanese paper which is acid-free,
Okay.
and the pencils I use are made in Germany. Although I'm switching now from the Staedtler Mars pencils to the paper Castell pencils, which have more of a bonding element in the graphite, so it holds a point for a longer period of time.
Nice. What Disney aspects have you worked with?
I do most of the Disney work that I do is purchased by Marvel.
Okay.
I mean, everything is under the Disney umbrella anyway.
They own it all.
Yes, they do. And I do some of the classic Disney cartoons, such as Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. But I've also done the digital cartoons, such as Frozen. But Marvel have so many artists who are recreating the classic Disney, and they recognize that I'm known mainly for Star Wars. They're also buying Star Wars from me as well. So 80% of the work I'm doing is actually Star Wars.
Nice.
But I'm doing other movies too. I mean, I've done Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. But no, that's maybe 5% of what I do.
Nice. What have been some properties that you've been particularly proud of being part of aside from Star Wars and Marvel?
How do you mean properties?
With say being proud of your work on Star Wars or like Game of Thrones, what are some of like maybe highlights that you've enjoyed doing for like certain licenses?
You mean the characters themselves?
Characters, or even just like basic like architectural design.
Well, I love. See, my strength really is portraiture, and so I love to draw Daenerys. I love the ship designs in Star Wars, even in the prequels, which are more complex. But again, space action is a lot more work, frame per frame. If I'm doing 2 or 3 human beings in one frame, I can move relatively quickly. But once I come to space action, I'm slowed way down. So I really have to do Spider-Man and the Avengers and space action to keep the fans happy and keep Marvel happy. But my preference is the facial, head and shoulders.
Yeah, it's sometimes a little bit easier when they're wearing a mask and you don't have to worry about is that nose right.
I like drawing Deadpool because you can move pretty fast, and he doesn't have the webbing.
Yeah, and you can be very expressive with the eyes as well too.
Yeah, the limbs and whatnot. As you know, in the film, he's aware of the fact that he's a comic character, so there's a strong element of humor in the whole thing. And there are some classic poses that he's done in the film, which I like to depict. And people recognize that instantly. They remember what scene that was. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for the interview.
Jeff?